Hey guys, it's Friday. Happy Valentine's Day. We've got a great special at WagerTalk, which I'll talk about more in between picks, but we're going to get right into it. It's Friday. They gave us more games than they gave us last week, so should appreciate that. And one of those games, I guess we'll call this a marquee game because it's on one of the big networks. I believe ESPN2 takes us to the Atlantic 10 for Loyola Chicago, St. Louis. It's a very interesting matchup to me because these are two teams. So you have a team in St. Louis that was expected to be a big time contender in this league this year. And then you have a team in Loyola Chicago who I expected to be a big time contender in this league this year. And I think they would be, or they would be in better position to do that had they not been crushed by injuries like coming into conference play. So let's go back to the Christmas week, late December. Loyola Chicago heads out to Hawaii to play a multi-team event over the Christmas holiday, and like half their team gets hurt. Well, half their starting lineup gets hurt. Justin Moore goes down with an injury that's going to keep him out the rest of the season. But they ended up missing three starters for a stretch there at the end of December into conference play, where predictably they went 1-5 because they were down Moore, Jaden Dawson, Huanosu. I know I'm butchering that name, but the reality is they just weren't built to win without those guys. And I don't know that I knew it was going to be difficult for them to win without Justin Moore. But since then, Dawson is back. He's probably the most important one. And they've figured out how to move forward without their point guard or without Justin Moore in the backcourt. And they're just playing much better, which you would expect from a team of this caliber that does have depth. They just had to figure out how to get it in the right places. And so they're 5-3 in their last 8 games and 4-0 at home during that stretch. They run really so part of the reason that they struggled so badly when they had this cluster injury scenario is they really run a detailed offense, a lot of intricate offensive sets, a lot of cutting. And so it's really tough to sort of patch that up on the fly. But it's working again. And that's where I think they could beat St. Louis here, because even with St. Louis sort of bringing up their defensive rating since non-conference play, I still think this team is a little bit soft defensively. And I could see, they've gotten hung up on really good offensive teams throughout the course of conference play so far. You could look back to their most recent game being an example of that. George Mason, for the first 30 minutes was getting whatever they wanted in that game earlier this week. So I think St. Louis could have a tough time defending Loyola Chicago here. And then it's just a matter of we can go back to the very beginning of the season. St. Louis has been very overrated in the market since day one. I think there was a collective thought that Josh Schertz would come in from Indiana State. He'd bring Robbie Avila with him, and St. Louis would win this league and run roughshod, over the A10. And that just simply hasn't been the case. And that comes as no surprise to me because the A10 is a better league. And I just think that was a little bit naive to think that Schertz and Avila would just come in year one, because remember, Avila's still got another year, and just run over teams like VCU, like Dayton, Loyola Chicago. This is just a better league than the Missouri Valley. There's some bad teams at the back end of this league, but the top 5 or 6, St. Joe's, belongs in that conversation. Oh, and George Mason, who just beat them earlier this week. There's some really good teams in this league. It's a deeper league. And so it comes as no surprise to me that St. Louis hasn't been that top team, and they're not going to be that top team, in my opinion. They're one of the good teams. They're not the best team, but they continue to get priced like that. And that's why I keep finding myself on the other side of them. Look at what they've done against that top group of teams that I just mentioned: George Mason, VCU, Dayton, and St. Joe's. This will be their first time playing against Loyola Chicago. 2-4 against those teams. Haven't won a game on the road against one of those teams. 3-6 on the road overall this season. So you come on the road here against a quality Loyola Chicago team. And also, let's not forget, St. Louis earlier this week played it. They fought all the way back to force overtime with George Mason, only to lose that game. Gibson Jimerson was questionable going into that game. He played all 45 minutes. Quick turnaround. I think this is a big ask for St. Louis to go and win on the road here, and I don't think they're going to do that. So Didn't get the number I wanted. Would have loved this closer to pick, but Loyola Chicago -2.5 makes sense, and I think you could probably just money line it. If you want to bet this game tonight. All right, at WagerTalk this weekend, we've got a great special. I have a 5% play tonight, which you can get on my page. I'm going for 4 straight 5% max bet winners with a game tonight. You can head over to my page and get that, wt.buzz/AT, or you can take advantage of a great special that we have for Valentine's Day weekend. It's buy 3 days, get 3 days free. It comes out to about maybe about twice as much as the 5% play costs, but you get 6 full days. So you get the 5%er tonight and basically the entire week of plays for essentially just double what one play would cost. So a great deal. We are in the heart of college basketball season, no pun intended. And I'm going to have a ton of plays over the next 6 days. So check out that special. And that'll be up, I think, all weekend. So you just keep an eye on the site. It's up today. I think that's going to be offered this weekend at WagerTalk. It's a great deal. And you should take advantage, whether it's for me or another handicapper, because that deal is across the board. Take advantage of that. And I believe you can take advantage of it as many times as you want, per capper. Doesn't matter. So we're going to head out. Well, we're not really heading out anywhere. We're going to stay in the Big Ten because the UCLA Bruins are going to come to us this week. So no Big Ten after dark tonight because the Bruins are on the road and they're heading to Bloomington. Big game here because both these teams really kind of need this win. We've got UCLA, Indiana, and so if you watch my daily show, sorry, I'm just toggling games here. If you watch my daily show on WagerTalk TV, you'll see this pop up later as the total of the day. Tough game to bet on the side. My gut tells me Indiana might win this game, but I don't like it, and I don't like the number. So we're going to focus on the total here. But I am going to kind of like go a little bit contrarian in the total market, if you will, and play over in this game. I think this is a game that a lot of people just kind of expect to go under. You have UCLA's a very solid defensive team. Indiana's had their issues offensively at times. Indiana has had their issues in general at times. But I think there's going to be some points here for a couple of reasons. So go back to last game. Indiana finally gets a win they desperately needed. And essentially what they were able to do was play a zone against Michigan State that Michigan State wasn't really ready for lack of I guess it's possible that Mike Woodson outcoached Tom Izzo in that game, which is just insane to even think that would be a possibility. But the matchup zone worked, and Indiana was able to sneak out of there with a win. Now, I don't know that really works against UCLA, especially with UCLA like preferring to get most of their offense in transition. And also, it's worth noting, UCLA's been much better offensively. There was a point in time where Mick Cronin was calling out coaches and saying that no one cared as much as him, and that time coincided with a stretch where UCLA just looked completely clueless on offense. Not clueless to the extent of like not being able to put the ball in the basket, but just not really running anything, not really having much of an idea of how they wanted to attack other teams. And I think they've really rectified some of that during this run. So yes, they lose their most recent game against Illinois. It wasn't a bad offensive performance. I thought they played well in that game. They covered the number. Prior to that, UCLA had won 7 straight games, and they're playing much better. The offense looks much better. And again, UCLA is going to have a better chance of scoring when they're playing in transition. I bring that up here because it makes a lot more sense for Indiana to play in transition with UCLA than it would them sort of walk the ball up the court and try to get in a half-court offense. Why is that? Indiana doesn't shoot the 3 at all, and UCLA is very good in half-court. If you let UCLA just kind of sit back in their half-court defense, it's going to be really tough to score against them. Now, Indiana does have a really strong low post player in Ballo. UCLA does tend to have a hard time defending those types of guys. But again, I just don't think it, like game plan wise, it makes any sense for Indiana to slow it down because Indiana's not a great 3-point shooting team. They're not a great jump shooting team. So Indiana is the one that plays the faster pace. And I think UCLA will oblige there a little bit because I think UCLA looks at this and says, yep, we're going to have a better chance at scoring against Indiana if we get out in transition, because that's been the best way. That's been the way that they've had the most success scoring all season. So from a field goal percentage standpoint, both of these offenses are pretty good. 46.4% from the field for Indiana, 46.9% from the field for UCLA. So they're making a decent percentage of their shot attempts. And I think the script of this game, or how I think both teams are going to play it, is going to be to get, try to push transition and get some offense that way. That increases the expected number of possessions. And I think that ends up getting this one over when it's all said and done. So total of the day, over in the UCLA-Indiana game. Best bet of the day, 5% play, up on my page now at WagerTalk, wt.buzz/AT. But be smart. Go get that great Valentine's Day special, because it's only it's only a little bit more, and you get the whole week as opposed to one play. But both of those are up on my page. I hope you guys all have a great Valentine's Day weekend, and we'll see you guys back on the College Basketball Show on Monday. Cash all your tickets and have a great weekend.